Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we're going to be working on another Daiwa. It's one of these Daiwas that kind of had a couple of neighbors, cousins, friends, whatever. This is the Daiwa 7650 HRL, and the King Neptune for sure, and possibly the Ocean Star reels, which were private branded, were also manufactured and look the same as this particular Daiwa, but this is the real thing. This is the Daiwa single ball bearing, circa late 80s. You can always read it in the bottom here, and you'll see that on the King Neptunes as well. It says engineered and designed, engineered and developed in California, USA, manufactured in Japan by Daiwa. And this one's working nicely. It just came in the shop for a quick tune-up and make sure everything's fine. And we're just going to go ahead and take it apart, show you how the reel is made. If you have one of these, you'll see how to service it. And if you were just curious about what's underneath the reel, then you'll see that as well. So I'm going to start by taking off the spool, removing the drag tension washer and the spool. And you'll notice a couple of things while I'm doing that. One of them is that I have a protective glove, a latex glove on my hand. The other one is that I'm using a parts tray to store the parts that I take off. I'm noticing that we've got some broken line in here, so we'll take care of that as we go about tuning up this reel. The rest of it looks clean on the inside. I'm not feeling anything crazy in there like sand or anything. So let's get to the bottom of the reel then. And we'll take off the handle. That's got a screw, so you know that's a through handle. It comes in two types of handles. There's a handle that has the through screw like this one, and other reels may have the handle that screws into the main drive. This one goes through the main gear, and I like to put that screw right back on the handle so that I don't lose it. I like to put that handle right into the parts tray so I don't lose it there either. 3 side plate screws then. These are Phillips head screws, so these actually have a through slot, so you could use a flat blade on them if you wanted to. This is a metal case, and so this is pre-graphite in terms of the era, if you will. Nicely designed reel. Still fishable today. You saw it. It turns nice and easy. I don't expect to find anything inside that's going to be of consequence. And what you just want to do is just keep these things oiled and lubed, and you know, do that about once a year, and this thing will last you a long, long time. So the downside to a reel like this, not that it's much of a downside, but you do have a bushing, not a bearing. We've got a very dry reel is what we're seeing here. And you notice that I did lay the 3 screws that I took in the side plate case out. I wanted to make sure that those have the same length. If there was one that was different, I would note that accordingly. Now we're going to spin the reel so that we can get the crosswind block down below. I'm wondering if we can't just pull this main gear out. No, we can't. So you want to pull the crosswind gear down so that you can get the hold-fast screw out of that crosswind block. That gear is two-sided, so you have to pull the shaft out in order to get the gear out. You'll see what was happening there. It was being pulled backing up here. So some of these do come off. This one does come off. We could have pulled it off that way as well. And we're just going to do a little bit of cleanup here. I'm going to just use some WD-40 to loosen that grease a little bit. Don't need much. And that's actually a penetrating oil. That's not WD-40. It's a WD-40-like penetrating oil. I'm kind of brand agnostic, but for those of you that are wondering when did it ever come in a red can, it didn't. That's the Ace Hardware version of penetrating oil. It'll do just as well for most tasks. And then we're just going to do the same thing here. We're going to hit the front of this just to get the dried grease off. The front of this is actually the anti-reverse. The anti-reverse is sitting in the case here. So you want to make sure that as you do your cleanup in that, put a little bit of oil. I'm going to use Real X oil on here just to keep that flexible. And you'll remember when you go to put this in then that you need to work it so that you bring it down in order to clear the teeth on the main gear. Okay, with that open then, we can go ahead and take the top nut off. Let's see if that's a 14. Might get lucky. No, that's a 15 or larger. So let's go into the tool tray here and find the right bench. 15 millimeter, that's probably what it is. And I'm just going to pause the camera here. I need a deeper socket for this. Okay, so I'm back with the socket. It's a 15 millimeter socket. This is going to turn counterclockwise. That's traditional. We're going to take this assembly off then. Lock nut up top, and then there's a little kind of a keyway here that holds that in, and we have a single ball bearing underneath, and we have a ramp that's going to trigger the bail release. So let's take these off so that we can pull the pinion gear. And I'm going to do the same thing I did up top there. I don't expect these screws to be different, but they may be. This is one of those cases where the flat screwdriver actually works better than the just a little bit of strength there. Works better than the Phillips head, even though both can be used. I'm just gonna, this one seems a little stubborn, so I'll put a little bit of penetrating oil on there as I work it out. There we go. You don't want to wrench anything, these things, you break them and you're going to be in trouble, especially something like that where the ramp is for the bail release. So this serves two purposes. It provides the bail release lever, and it also provides the tie down for the bearing. I've just pushed it out a little bit. Now it's out completely. We're going to take that bearing off. I'm going to load that with oil, let it sit. Probably been a while since that bearing has seen it. I'm going to go clear the tracks then on the pinion gear. I'm just looking for a brush. I have too many tools here at the moment laying on the bench. Here's a brush. So these are nice, solid, dependable reels. The one side has a bushing on the case. The other side is just using the case as a bushing. Kind of save a couple of dollars, sometimes a couple of dollars, a couple of pennies probably in mass manufacturing. Probably wasn't even that much, but not as, you know, just a way to make a little bit of an economy in terms of the manufacture of the reel. All right, we're going to take a little bit of the blue grease then, put that on the shaft for the bearing. Also going to put the blue grease onto the teeth of the pinion gear. I'm going to go grab that bearing, spin it, it spins nicely, and reinstall that into the case. Just got to walk it in. Don't hit anything. These cases are hard, and you don't want to break them. That ramp. Install the ramp now. Pinion gear came right out from below. That's okay. We'll get that back in. I like to start these by hand so I don't strip them. I'm also running these things through that penetrating oil. I have a little pool of penetrating oil sitting on the table there. Just going to make sure that that coats it so that they don't get as stuck. I mean, it's been a long time, I'm sure, since this ramp came off. Maybe it's never come off. So it doesn't hurt to put a little bit of oil back onto that screw to hold it down better. Tighten these up now. Then we'll check underneath the rotor there, just make sure that everything's clean. There appeared to be a little bit of sand that I brushed off that ramp, so we'll just make sure that rotor's clean. Two ways to get this one. Go put it from behind. And it's a little bit of debris under there, so let's just grab a paper towel, see if we can't get it out that way. And here's where it says engineered and developed in California, USA, manufactured in Japan. You'll see that on the same thing on a King Neptune, which I believe was Daiwa's product version that was sold in Sears. Okay, we've just oiled this little flip lever here. You can trip it a couple of times, make sure that your bail release is working nicely. And we can just simply put this back on. Grab that nut again. Once you grab the nut, we can switch the socket around. Test the bail, just make sure it fires. There we go, bail's firing. We're all tight up there. Okay, we can go reinstall now. So we're going to take the crosswind gear. We're going to do the same thing we've been doing with the others. We'll put a little bit of grease on the back, a little bit of grease on the front so that the crosswind block can slide easily. I'm going to load that in. We saw before that we can do this with either way, but the crosswind gear is going to go on the back of the main gear here. We've cleaned the main gear up. There we go. I'm going to check the teeth on the main gear to make sure that there's none that are damaged. You want to make sure that there's no chips or breaks there, and you also want to check this way to make sure that they're uniform. With that complete, then we can install the main gear. We're going to bring the stud on the crosswind gear down below so that it's dead bottom. That's going to enable us to put the crosswind block in. Just cleaning up a little bit of the old grease that was on that. I'm going to do the same thing here, put a little bit of blue grease into the track where it's going to ride. Then we can go install. Again, you probably have to pull the main gear up. There we go. Put the main gear up, pull that out, then put this in. I can put the shaft in next. You want to wipe the shaft down. Here's the problem that we had with that the line. It was all wrapped around the shaft. We'll grab some steel wool and just do a fine little cleaning there. A little bit more on the blue grease. Use your gloved hand to spread that around so that it's nice and even. You can come through the top then. Now we just want to line the hole up in the shaft so that we can get the screw in. And when I took this out, I had to pull that main gear up a little bit, so let's do the same on the way back in. Tighten that screw down. We'll set that assembly aside. Almost done. There you go. We're done now. Push it in, give it a spin, make sure that that shaft is going up and down, which it is. Good shape there. And we just need to reinstall the side plate. Remember, this has got to push off so that we can get it in. So look when you're going to do this. You can pull this back. That'll set it. That's these and you want to make sure you can hear it now so that it's working properly. 3 side plate screws. Again, these can be either Phillips head or flat bladed. I think we found on the way out the flat blade was working a little bit better. I kind of like the Phillips head, it just makes it easier for me to turn it. But if you need leverage, sometimes that through screw using the flat blade is better. So folks ask about the mechanical screwdriver, the battery operated one. I don't recommend using that. I find that there's a problem in the torque on those things, and if you're working on something like this, that's a metal case, you may warp the metal case, and if you're working on something that's a plastic case, like some of the low-end reels, you can crack the case. The one that seems a little bit more resistant to all of that is the graphite case, which has a little bit of flex in it, but I don't recommend it. Okay, so setting this up for a right side reel crank using your left hand. And we're almost done. We're just going to go service the drags, and this one will be going fishing again. All right, oops, that's the wrong one. I had the big one out before. You can actually use a coin on this if you needed to, a coin or washer. That's kind of the way that's set up. As noted before, this one spins nicely. Let's go ahead and do the drag then. Pull the spring out of the drag. That is a spring. Please be careful with it if you're taking these out. We have a frozen washer here. See what we can do to unfreeze that. There's just some junk on it that needs to be cleaned. This is a little bit of a composite. On one side it seems to be Teflon, on the other it's got a little bit of fabric to it. So I'm just going to put a little bit of drag washer grease on there. And as we saw, came down, we had the two sandwiched together here, this one being on top. First one rides in the slot. Just a single drag washer. And we have the fabric, and then we have the round washer sitting up top. The round washer has a D for the slot. It's not a totally round shaft up top there, so note that when you go to reinstall the shaft. Now we just put the spring in, holding it so that it doesn't shoot away. You want to make sure that the spring gets seated into the groove in the reel. Up, drag washer adjuster knob. Tighten it down and make sure it's holding. There we go. All right, there you have it. The Daiwa 7650 HRL. That bail will turn there. Just make sure we're cranking away with that. Everything's all set to go fishing again. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If you did, please like it and subscribe. Tell your friends about the channel. We're always looking for more subscribers. And with that, I wish you good fishing. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Thank you for watching.